Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Your Call to Action. Today's episode is going to be all about connecting with David from Cogsflow. David is an amazing gentleman who came from the east coast of Australia, down in Melbourne, has built an amazing network in the finance sector and now has come into the startup community in Perth, West Australia, and is building a really great company that we're going to find all about. And what this interview is going to be about is really just the grit and the grind of growing your businesses. And even though it's not going to be completely around e-commerce, it's going to be giving you an idea of what all businesses go through, which will be lessons that we're definitely going to be able to take away, get inspired by, and do something about it.
What an introduction. Delightful to be with you, Jesse. My name's David Carbines. I'm the co-founder of Cogsflow. So we solve working capital for e-commerce businesses. And I love the way that you frame that in your introduction because I love e-commerce. I've got a retail background, care a lot about trading and buying and selling things online. But for me, business is much broader than that. I love the way that lets us think about and organize. I think it gets lots of things right. There are obviously some limitations with that, but it's the best system, or it's the worst system apart from every other one.
Nice.
My own background and my journey to where I got here is kind of many and varied. As a kid, I was always one of those restless ones. I think I was into everything, but I don't think I really mastered anything. So much to my music teacher's chagrin, I was okay, but I didn't really practice. I think, I was good at sport. I was kind of always one of those kids that was kind of picked in the middle and did lots of things. Loved traveling and doing other bits and pieces, but it's taken me a while to figure out and find my place in the world. If I have, as I say that, I wonder whether I'll be regretting this or looking back on this moment in a few years down the track and go, wow, I'm still a work in progress. The original career plan was to be a humanitarian. So I ended up with World Vision in Africa. But unfortunately, that was during the global financial crisis. So there were not a lot of jobs going in that sector.
2007, 2008?
Yeah, I finished studying 2008.
Wow. Okay.
So I came back.
Humanitarian, huh?
Yeah. So I studied at university a bunch of things. My majors were history, economics, development studies, and classical music, specifically voice. And I was always kind of the most commercial of the arts students, and I was always the most creative and artsy of the commerce kids. And it always kind of frustrated me that, each subject would kind of have the token 1 week on the other. So development studies would, kind of have 1 week looking at economics. And to my mind, it was like, no, there's so much more there. And, in economics, amongst all of the mathematics and firm and competition theory, there was 1 week on development economics or the human side of the business. And I was thinking, no, there's so much more going on there as well. So finished studying, was in Africa for 6 months, but came back, did the grad program at Aldi supermarkets. So learned a lot about grocery retail and running a store network. Was there for 3 years. Moved across to Deloitte Consulting and was in their strategy and operations business for just on 3 years.
Hold on a second. You were working in humanitarian opportunities, supporting people within low economic situations, and then somehow you transition into Deloitte? What happened in the mental direction there?
A little bit of career whiplash in between those two, hey?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a transition in between, but those guys, as corporate as they can get.
Yeah. I like doing things and actually being close to the action. So in Africa, I was with the humanitarian and emergency affairs part of World Vision. So that was resource pre-positioning, risk identification, and response teams. So writing a lot of policy documents and working through the processes to make all of that happen. That was one of the it was an internship that I was doing kind of as I was a student, but then it turned into kind of a role while I was there, and I ended up jumping on a plane and spending 6 months overseas. And the plan was always to kind of use that to find the next thing, and it's a large organization. The next thing turned out to be a GFC, and there were no next things. There was relatively few opportunities. Everything I went for, my friends were also going for them, even though that they'd been there longer and they were more qualified. So it was a really interesting time to change and think about what's next. I'd gone through the recruitment process with the supermarket business, but just hadn't stayed there and said, "Hey, I'm not available until another 12 months into the future." And the end dream was to kind of politely decline them when the time came. But as it turned out, having a plan B was really valuable. And so that meant that, when I came back to Australia and returned, I knew what I was returning to, and there was a timeline. So even thinking ahead or thinking about, hey, what else could be possible is really valuable. And I was with that organization for 3 years, but by the kind of time I got to the end of that, I was looking for the next thing. I was looking for what was next, the next challenge. And that environment is highly operational. As every business owner knows, it's all about in the detail and being in the numbers. It wasn't, I really looked forward to the chance to step back and think a bit more.
Is this Deloitte we're talking about, right?
Yeah, so the supermarket business was really hands-on, really full-on, lots of doing. And the opportunity to work at Deloitte is essentially structured problem solving for big businesses, government departments, large private organizations. Essentially, you're employed as a problem solver, at least our division of Deloitte. We were engaged as problem solvers to help them grow, help them cut costs, help them to do something differently, help them to operate working capital differently. There was lots of things there that we got the opportunity to work on. And when I was there for 3 years, that's really what we did. We produced a lot of slide packs, did a lot of financial models, and essentially wrote recommendations to folks saying, in our professional opinion, you should think of these considered things. And there's some legalese around that, but essentially problem solving for big organizations.
Wow. And so you're at Deloitte, you've been smashing out with them. How long until you transitioned out of that and moved into your next stage?
Yeah, I was there for 2.5 years, I think, when I started looking seriously for the next role, and started just talking to folks. Again, I think small businesses and businesses generally do this better than most, but life is people driven. It's all about networks, relationships, people who what you're learning about, where you're at and where you're headed. And I had the opportunity to work with a mentor at a social enterprise incubator. So I was only there for 12 months in the end, and it's a great organization. So the Difference Incubator, to say it changed my life is maybe a little bit of hyperbole and overstating it, but I would definitely say it changed the nature of my career, in that it tried to blend probably my two abiding passions that I'd realized up until that point was positive social and environmental impact that is by design core business, and delivering on that as a for-profit going concern business. And I hadn't seen many opportunities where they had come together in what we would now call a social enterprise. I think that does happen, and by its nature, it happens a load of places, but deliberately, for purpose, by design, unashamedly, nailing colors to the mast, this is who we are. I think the world has moved a lot in the 10 years or so since I took that role, and I'm delighted to see it. So the mandate for the Difference Incubator was for purpose and for profit, as in revenue surplus generating, as opposed to the legal designation not for profit or for profit. They were trying to put those two things together and say, how do we design businesses? How do we support and grow businesses that are trying to do that deliberately?
So what were you doing amongst that? What was the part you were doing? Like, that was the business model. Were you running a business inside of that, or was it? I'm a little lost.
I was part of the program team to help our clients do that effectively. So all of our clients could turn up on the door, and when we would say, what is the way that you're trying to make the world better? They could talk a lot about that. Some of them had PhDs, some of them had really advanced ideas and understandings around how the world was operating and was broken and how they wanted to fix it, which was excellent. What they weren't great at was, okay, so who are all of the customers that are in that, and how do you serve them and make money? That was much harder for them to articulate. And one of my colleagues said it best when he said, I've helped talk people around on their business model. Should they be enterprise level or micro level? Should they be selling bundles of things or individual things? Should they be online or in person? Isaac would say, I've talked people around on their business model, but I've never talked people out of their impact. And I think that still holds true today. When you find people that are genuinely passionate and revved up around making the world better, maybe you can help them work through or argue the nuances of how that works. But when they say, hey, I'm super passionate about this, that's one of the things I love about my job and the world is I get to work with and meet a lot of super passionate people like that.
So let's fast forward to now. So now you're at a stage where you made a transition from helping them run businesses to actually now running a business. Where did that transition come in? Because that I'm curious to know. Because you can only advise so much until you do it, So I'm curious to see how that came.
I think I went from the working in an environment where I owned profit and loss and I was responsible for numbers back to consulting where I was paid to solve problems and put out plans and advise other people to say, this is what we think you should go and do. I set up a consultancy with a couple of friends that's still operating. That's called Red Hat Impact. Our thesis was of the thinking hats, red is the emotional one. And we care about people's emotions. And we observed that loads of our customers struggled with inventory. They struggled with planning it, forecasting it, figuring out how many, and they struggled with buying it and funding it and just connecting all the dots on all of that.
I just want to go back one step. So you started a consultancy firm first. That was your first business you ever made.
Yep.
One of your first businesses.
Yep.
And in that consulting firm, that was where you're working it through, where you set up the ABN, paying the taxes, doing all the work. And it was in that created the next one. How long were you doing the consulting firm for?
Yeah, well, it's still operating. I think it has its 8th birthday next month. It started with a couple of friends saying, I think there is a business in this segment. We've identified customers that need help. We've identified ways in which we can help them. And if we can do all of this, they make money and we make money. Because our business is 2 other businesses, we've always thought about what is their end result. We want them to pay us money and we will make their lives better. We can quantify and we should be able to put a dollar value on how we make their life better. And it's kind of that idea or that designing is really valuable, especially when you're selling to businesses. It's, okay, we're going to ask them to pay us this amount of money. Why would they do that? How is their life better? So that business is I think it's about to turn 7 or 8. I'd need to check the numbers, and shame on me for not knowing that at the tip of my tongue. But I think maybe 3 or 4 years in, it got to the point of us seeing that our customers were working so hard on this. It was we think there are a lot of e-commerce customers that are struggling with inventory, demand planning, merchandise forecasting, all of that kind of jazz, as well as the funding of it. So we were thinking...
How did the problem start? Because that's actually a problem that happens a lot that I hear about. Even us as a fulfillment house, we're hearing the same thing, because most of their focus is like, I love this product. This product is the best product, and I'm just going to tweak it a little bit with my manufacturer for my next release because I'm going to come through. But then I need to make sure the quality check is going to be right. So I'll just get some samples, get it through. All right, cool. I'm going to put in my order, get 2,000 of them. 60 of them are really bad. Oh, so much drama. And there's a lot of attention and focus and detail towards that, where it's about product release iterations, quality control. So that is an ongoing cycle for businesses in the e-commerce space. It's very rare for them to say, you know what, this product's done. Let's get 20,000 of them. I'm going to focus on my forecast of this one because it's just going to last forever. No, they always want to upgrade them. So did you see that same iteration process? Because then that's where it gets difficult to forecast for them, because forecasting on product version 7 but do they forecast to release version 5 again so that they could run funds on version 7? You know what I mean? You know, like what I'm talking about?
Yeah, just a half a step back from where you've started. I absolutely agree with you. Every one of the folks that we do business with that sell things online, all of them have a story of why they started their business, and it typically falls into folks that love the product or are committed to their customers and making their lives better, and they happen to have the right product to do it. I'm still yet to meet a founder and a small business owner that says, I started this business because I really wanted to run spreadsheets. I really just wanted to stay up late and work weekends to try and make things balance in a spreadsheet. The customers and the products will take care of themselves, but I just really need to focus and spend more time on spreadsheets. Even one of our clients is a designer and a chartered accountant, and they would say, look, I can do the spreadsheets, but I've just got so much other stuff I want to focus on: design, product, next, running marketing, sorting through operations. We've got to bring on a couple more staff. The spreadsheets are a necessary evil that make that kind of that make it run. But as you say, there's so much variability around the product style, the variant, the market, the customer sentiment, their ability to sell, and how they're spending money and turning money into ads and turning ads into sales. All of that is unknown, but it's mission critical. If they get this wrong, they won't be around for very long. So it's this combination of it's vital, it's important, but again, very few folks love it and actively want to lean into that.
No, not many do. Not many do. Most of them are on the creative side, and they just want to really make a cool product last into the future and hopefully make enough margin so that they can somehow just pay off those expensive credit cards that they get through, or the American Express card that just covered them for the last inventory push.
Yes.
Just saying, it happens.
What's that definition of entrepreneur? Someone who pays wages off a credit card.
Yeah, for a period of time.
I've got different working titles, but that's the one that always made me go, wow, this is real.
Yeah, and those points, then they'll bust out those Instagram shots of where they were elsewhere. The thing I find interesting is inventory flow of product lines is actually very important. But not only that, it's actually understanding forecast levels. But forecast level can only really get some accuracy in their third or fourth cycle. Because those first two, they're so green. It's too hard. Because the volume's really small, they're still working it out, so it doesn't go through. So when you're in the consulting phase before the solution that you brought forth, which we'll bring into, the conversation that you had at the consulting phase, what cycles were they at? What sizes were they working at? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so like you say, there's so much variability or just unknown. Our questions are typically around, is the supply chain certain? And that's probably the one that most folks have more control over. Hey, where do you get your product from? Are you manufacturing it yourself? Are you buying from next door? Are you trying to import it from a different time zone, currency, language? There's a bit of unknown or trying to figure out what's going on there. Are you doing business for the first time? Hey, is this a repeat order where you've done business before or in a different way? Secondly is the product itself. Like, hey, if it's a plain black t-shirt, we kind of understand how they're going to perform. Whereas, hey, is it on trend? Is it likely to vary? Does the sentiment change? Like what is the actual product itself? And then lastly, it's the market and the customer. Hey, do you know your customer? Hey, it's a filter that runs out every 6 months and they kind of have to buy another one periodically, is very different to we're trying to get a one-off purchase. It's unlikely to be repeated. We don't know where our customers come from. We're unsure how to reach them or the best ways to communicate with them. There's lots of unknowns around that. And really what we're trying to do at the consulting phase is to say, okay, well, how are you thinking about that in terms of time and money? where money does cost time, because by the stage you start buying things and things start going out of date, or it's coming on the water, or it needs to be sitting in a warehouse or in a 3PL. Understanding the times on how that works is important, but also understanding the money that folks are committing to things like creative and advertising and marketing is really important too. We're not a marketing agency. We won't run your ads, nor will we, build your brand assets or your creative. But we do work with a lot of folks that do those sorts of things. And unless our clients have super innovative ways of reaching their customers or moving their product or established relationships with stockists and suppliers, essentially what we try and do is say, that looks risky to us, or that looks pretty straightforward. Yes, that makes sense to us. We can see how that's going to work. Or there's a lot of assumptions in here that you have to absolutely nail. We wish you all power, but that seems unproven to us.
So that's all in the consultancy stuff. So then you're hearing them, and then some of them actually stand out, and I'm pretty sure you might have been like, you know what, this one's going to make it. If they just had a bit of cash, they'd make it. You might have had a couple of those shots. So from what I'm hearing from you, so you're having these conversations. Some of these tweaks are popping up as light bulbs. What happened? What went from the consultancy approach to Cogsflow? How did that all come about? What's the story there?
Yeah, it was the conviction that this is a big enough problem that we can solve it automatically with technology, rather than trying to do it human-driven on our own each time, one by one. We think that in a version of this, that there's risks and understandings of how this should operate, and if we can standardize those and help folks do that, we can do it at scale. When I look at, and this is probably going back to where we started, when I look at the world's problems and the challenges that we're facing, I think we're going to solve those at scale with loads of entrepreneurial folks that hopefully are supported by businesses and ecosystem providers that are on their side. So I'm always looking for great providers across the chain in the 3PL space. So it's nice to introduce folks to Keepspace, but also for us on the financing and funding side as well. That's core business for every business, whether they are eyes open or eyes closed about it. They still have to answer the questions on how will you pay for your purchases, when will you collect cash from your customers, and what happens in the middle. That is stressful. That takes time. If we can solve that at scale, we think the world becomes a better place.
So what did you do? Why did you go to Perth? What's all that? Tell me that story.
So we were currently consulting. We had a handful of customers. We said, okay, we think this is worthwhile on bringing it out of the existing brand and setting up a new organization. We started to standardize what we were trying to do. And we said, okay, how can we find more customers like this? I think most businesses are at their best when they can say, this is my product and this is who we serve. I don't think, and this is saying as a consultant, I don't think we were ever as disciplined as doing that in our consulting days. It was always we're trying to work with folks that make the world better. But pulling this business opportunity out of Red Hat Impact and into Cogsflow, we're able to really double down and say, hey, we are looking for e-commerce providers that are selling, that are growing, that are looking for reducing barriers on capital constraints. This is where we're at, and that was we're still evolving that, but that's been really fun. That's been one of the funnest parts of my job. That was just over 2 years ago that we pulled it out, got a business, created a new brand. I brought a co-founder alongside me 6 months into the journey, so it's delightful to have Reese Henderson join. And we're Melburnians, so my wife and I are from Melbourne, but her job led her to go to Perth. She's a classical musician. She's an orchestral violinist, and there aren't too many jobs that come up across Australia and New Zealand. So when one came up in Perth, she auditioned, was accepted for a trial, and she moved over late 2022, and I followed in Easter 2023.
As you would, as you would. Got to keep that family together. So, to understand clearly, Cogsflow, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still figuring this out. Cogsflow will solidify a list of criteria. If it meets that criteria, they'll pay bankroll for inventory goods for e-commerce businesses. Is that right?
Yeah, it's even simpler than that. We would encourage folks just to join our waitlist. All they need is a name, an email address, and their ABN. We will
Hang
request.
on. What's the wait list for?
So
What
they
would I
sign up.
get from the wait list?
Yeah, they'd sign up for us, and we would automate essentially all of what you've just described. If you're an e-commerce business looking for e-commerce funding, jump on our website and give us a couple of those details. We will request access, and we will come back to you and say, this is how much inventory of yours we would like to support. And we hope that would be repaid this is what we think is going to happen over the next 6 months.
Tell me an example. What are those details you need to make the conversation worthwhile? Say I'm an e-commerce business and I'm busy as shit, and I'm trying to catch up with my next flight to China to get my next goods come across because I had some dramas with my last export, and I want to meet him face to face to have a bit about him, and then rebuild that relationship. Then come back, get on with the work, and talk to my marketing agency that's charging me an extra $6,000 more than he should have because he's fucking around with the internal team. But I'm working through that. But then I'm about to hire this other dude, and then I'm going to come to Cogsflow. Cogsflow needs something from me. What is it they need?
Yeah. You would be common to a few of our customers that have had supply troubles, and we would wish you safe travels on your way to Hong Kong or Shenzhen or wherever it is you're flying. We would want your name, your business name, your web address, your email address, and your ABN. That's about it. That's all we need from you. We will request access to a couple of your computer systems. Specifically, the two systems that we care about the most are your point of sale and your bookkeeping platform. And from that, we will give you an offer that says, hey, Jesse, we would like to buy X dollars worth of your inventory. We think that based on your business, that amount of inventory will turn into this amount of sales. And that's really important to us. Like I said before, we really care about the end profile of our customers. How do we ensure that they are better off by us doing business with them? And if that's the case, we'll send you an offer and say, this is how much of your inventory we would like to pay.
When you say like to pay, you mean like just fund? Or would you give them the cash, or you get the invoices and you pay the invoices?
Yeah, we work with your supplier and we would sell invoices. We would pay the invoices rather. So we send funds into the bank accounts of your suppliers. Currently, we only buy e-commerce inventory, but we're looking at other categories of spend in the future. Lots of our customers have asked us about marketing spend, and lots of our customers have asked us about 3PL and fulfillment spend as well. They're the big categories of costs for our customers.
Why? Hang on. Why would they do that? Why would they ask you to pay for their marketing budget and operational costs? Was it just something they were saying, hey, look, if you got to pay for my inventory, why don't you pay for these other internal spends? Why did that come up?
Yeah. So effectively, we're in the business of making e-commerce businesses simple and easier to run. And I think the big existential problem that most of our customers face is, how much should I buy? How will I afford it? When do I sell it? And when do I get the cash in? And do I die in the middle? I was speaking to one earlier this week, and they just said, yeah, honestly, between when I pay for inventory and when I sell it, it just kills cash flow. It's really scary. And so essentially what we are interested in is picking up the bills on things that our customers need to spend on that can be directly attributed to inventory before they receive cash from their suppliers. So typically for our customers, the single biggest cost is the inventory itself. And then the second biggest cost is somewhere around marketing and 3PL, depending on the nature of the article they're selling and the nature of their advertising costs. But typically, those are costs that our folks need to spend before they get money in from their customers. So inventory cost, inbound freight, insurance, marketing, and third-party logistics, they're all categories of spend that we care closely about. Outbound freight, so sending from their fulfillment to the customer, is typically after they've sold and after they've collected cash from their customer. So they're happy. They've already got the cash to pay for that. But it's all the stuff up front where they're kind of running numbers in their head saying, how much can I afford it? When do I have to pay for it? When do I get the cash in? I think that's the thing that keeps our customers, that's one of the main things that keeps our customers up at night.
So the fulfillment side, just knowing a little bit about that shouldn't be a huge cost if they're not selling anything. Because I don't know how the other fulfillment houses work, but for at least at Keyspace, the only thing, if they're not moving a single thing, the only thing they're up for is storage and their integration to their website. And storage, usually on a percentage scale, it's like 4 or 5% of their total standard bill run. So it's really, really small. And the integration's like $12 a week. So that's nothing either. So that part should be pretty passive until activation occurs from online orders. I don't know how the other guys do it. If they're doing it with charges all throughout, fuckers, they shouldn't be doing that. And the marketing spend I could understand would be an ongoing cost because you're always having to place Google ads, LinkedIn ads, Instagram ads, Facebook campaign ads, and those expenditures will be upfront before the sales created. So I can understand that online spend. And I've met a couple of businesses that will only purchase inventory once they've done pre-orders, and then there's some that will purchase it knowing expectations of their previous cycles that will run it through. And it's funny, actually, now that I say it, the earlier stage businesses will do pre-order arrangements and then buy stock, do 100 apologies for the delay in their dispatch. And then there'll be some businesses that after a couple of seasons, they'll do the dive, get the inventory, and just chew through it throughout the season. And then pray to Jesus that it all gets chewed up. Or discounts with bundles at the end of prime time. So that's like how I've seen the inventory side of it. So the inventory is our front cost, and I know that there's credit facilities that can support that over certain timeframes, but the budget spend for marketing, like I know that's where, Tractor Ventures and a couple of the debt consolidation businesses will pay for a big up market amount, charge huge interest rates for that, for the process of being able to sell the product. But then in Cogsflow, yours is more based on, if you just want to get the inventory good, we'll clear that, and then you can pay it off as the inventory clears out. Is that right? Like, and how would it work with you guys? Like, how's the financials work if we're going to do a deal?
So essentially, we aim to be embedded finance for folks that buy inventory for resale. So all of our customers are able to say they buy at one price, they sell at another, and they need cash in the middle. And I think what's unique about us is that we care about those two numbers, both on the margin side and the timing side, and we're prepared to work with our customers to make that happen. So effectively, we purchase inventory that our customers need. We purchase for cash, so we send cash directly to the suppliers of inventory. We sell it on credit, and we supply on credit to our customers that typically have it in a facility like Keepspace. We remain connected to their business systems, so we can see when they are selling and collecting cash. And as they do that, they repay us. So we are inbuilt finance within the inventory itself. It's as if we're saying this product will cost you not just what it costs to get it from the supplier, but also the cost of finance until you buy it. That's what we're trying to price. The cost of finance until it's sold and paid, that's what we're trying to support.
It sounds like commission-based financing. It sounds like it. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but it sounds like it. Like,
yes, it's very similar, except it remains it remains the merchant's product. It doesn't stay in our facility on our balance sheet. We want it to stay with our customers in their facility that's with Keep Space, that's available to buy, that appears on all of their systems. That's what we've tried to do.
So let me try and break this down, so real life examples work best for me. I'm going to say I'm going to buy 1,000 units of a type of shoe. Those 1,000 units, each unit's going to cost $10. So I'm looking at $10,000, right?
Yes.
To get the product. Then I got maybe another $1,000 for shipping from the product with duties and taxes. So I'm looking at 11 grand to get the products in, so I can start selling them for 30, 40 bucks retail price online on my e-commerce site. So that 11 grand for me to bring the inventory in, I'm going to dish that out. I either put it on a credit card or I'm going to put it with Cogsflow. If I put it with Cogsflow, if I put it on the credit card, I know I have to pay that fucker off in 30 days. Otherwise, I got interest after me. If I do it with Cogsflow, I have to pay Cogsflow based on how much I turn over every week, month, day to cover back their invoices that they're going to send. So how do you get money back? I'm curious.
Yeah, so two parts on that, and I love your example. So you're buying $10,000 worth of sneakers, and you're selling them for $30,000 to $40,000. If we just call it $40,000, that means that you make 30 grand to run the rest of your business. The hard part for you is, where do you get your 10 grand from, and when do you need to pay it back? If you put it on a credit card, that's day 30, and if it's after day 31, you're going to pay compounding interest daily. That's hard and stressful, especially when you need to do other stuff. Working with Cogsflow, we would pay $10,000 to your sneaker supplier, and we would charge you, let's call it $1,000, so that you have bought those sneakers off us for $11,000. That is your fixed price. The question is, when do you need to actually send cash to us? And as you say, we calculate that weekly based on your actual performance. So we don't say to you, you must pay us by, week 2 or week 4. We would say, hey, on week 2, how much did you sell? And at a pre-agreed rate, we would direct debit you for the cash that you have actually generated. And
that's where you would know from their online site, based on the sales created, how many orders they've made.
Yes. We take a view on how their sales are going to perform. So how their sales are going to perform, how they're going to collect cash effectively. And this is the bit that I think is interesting for us. And, we are better understanding sales of our customers. And that's what we're getting better at as a business is, hey, what are you likely to sell over the coming 2, 3, 6 months? And there's loads of variables on that. That's core e-commerce, but that's where we're at.
So in that scenario, right, and these shoes are coming through, we're going to say that these are not my first rodeo, because I'm going to be willing to put them on Cogsflow, and I've got some seasonalities behind. I got 3 seasons behind them. So I know these are one of my tier winners, top tier lines. So I'm going to put these through. They're just expensive, so I just want to clear them off. So that's one inventory line, and that's one SKU. If there's now adding complexity, let's say there's 12 SKUs now. Each 12 SKUs has a quantity total arrangement, and I am paying you for each SKU that I have sold on each line. Would your invoicing be based on, all right, SKU 1 has sold 10, SKU 2 has sold 4, SKU 5 has sold 6, SKU 10 has sold 12. Invoice total, direct debiting, $1,200. Something in that realm. And that would be done weekly based on that.
We have done that in the past, but most of our customers like simplicity. Most of our customers have just said, hey, honestly, I'd much rather say, and the arrangements that we're signing now is just as a straight percentage of revenue. So we can say, look, we understand what you are selling, and we know that that's variable, instead, to make it easier for our customers to understand how they repay us, most of them have us just on a straight percentage of revenue that we're repaying. Again, we work that out individually. So they've said, hey, perhaps we're supplying 10 sneaker SKUs, but you might sell, 100 different SKUs. Most of our customers have just said, look, that's 10% of my sales. I'm really happy for you to just take X percentage of the cash that I generate.
I'm going to get super nerdy with. Yeah, I'll let you finish. Sorry, continue.
In the words of many of our customers, they've said, "Hey, just let me keep it fair and keep it simple." That's what they want from us.
That was something you just said is fair. Now I'm going to get super nerdy on you because I love the idea of measuring it by the inventory line, but then you are changing the option to a percentage because there will be some SKUs that they have that you are not funding or cashing that they'll be selling, but then there's a percentage ratio that you'd be taking based on products that they have no connection to inventory that you've purchased on their behalf. So therefore, it could get a little skewy, it could get a little dicey over cash flow management.
Skewy. I like what you did there.
You know what I mean? Like, I could see how that could ruffle feathers in the future because I'd be like, you know what, Cogsflow is awesome in my first year. Second year, Cogsflow's ripping me off. This second year because I lost all this other because they covered maybe 30% of my lines, and they took the 60% or the 70% that wasn't covered by finance got chewed in, and therefore I had less cash covered off. That's annoying. So I also understand how e-commerce sellers are. They're not super analytical individuals. They're more creative, marketing. Let's go with the gut. Let's give it a crack kind of people.
I think they're all sorts. I've met all sorts in the e-commerce game.
There's all sorts out there.
When we first started, we actually said, hey, the sneakers that you're ordering, we know that they're not going to arrive for 6 weeks because they need to come from China. So we're going to, send funds out the door in week 1, and we will start repayments in week 7. That's a really hard risk proposition for us. And it was really hard for our customers because then mentally they were saying, well, hang on, aren't you repaying me? When does it start? Are we repaying yet or not? How much do I owe? And it was too complex. They actually just said to us, honestly, pay the bills, take a percentage of my revenue, let me know when it's redone. And typically they come to us when they want to purchase inventory again. And that was actually really valuable. So the ideal for us is to say, you've purchased inventory, you're selling down your sneakers, you're halfway sold down, you want to order sneakers again, let's have another look at your business, and this is what we'll offer you in the future. Effectively, I'm pricing the risk on what future cash flow looks like.
I've seen there are some business owners who I would know that would chill to such a business model, and I know there are some hardliners that we work with that are just counting every single cent and making sure every cent is not lost in their process. Hard spreadsheeter dudes. And
I'm happy to work with both. We personally go to the 5th decimal point of precision. That's valuable for us. But either way, yeah. I'm in the business of empowering and simplifying business for e-commerce folks. Typically, people ask to use us. They want to see what we'll offer on every purchase order. And they typically use us somewhere between 1 to 5 times a year. And I'm totally happy if folks say, I want to use you in March and then again in July. But honestly, when I go to reorder in February, I've just made all of my money over Christmas. I don't need you. I'm really happy with that. But typically, many of our customers are saying, hey, I've got a certain amount of money in my bank account. I want to do all of these different things. Should I lock up my money in pallets of inventory, or should I, spend it on new product development or marketing or expand into a new geography or, all of the things that businesses should be spending money on? We are an empowerment offer purely for the inventory side. And, there's no harm, no foul. If people ask to use us or they want to see what we'll quote and they don't go with us, all power to them. I'm really happy with that as well.
All right. Lovely business model. Very nice. Thank you, Dave. Let's get to the guts of this now, because you've been running this through. Has it been smooth sailing for you getting this business going? Because leaving a consulting, 7 years on the line, working it through, That's one thing. Going into another market and setting it up and building trust with people to have you work inside their business with them, it's a whole other game because you're a lot closer now. You're seeing that you are close as a consultant, but they can be a little vague sometimes until trust is established. Then you're like in the numbers because you're in their finance books now. You're in the next point. How's it been going running the business here?
I think, like many startups, I would say high highs and low lows. We have achieved lots of things. We've kicked lots of goals. We've gotten a lot of things right, and I'm really proud of that. And by the same token, not everything has broken our way. We haven't been lucky. We haven't always done the best in hindsight, certainly haven't always done the best thing. And that's been hard. I think personally, that's the founder journey of learning as an individual. But I've had the most fun I've ever had in my career of all of the roles that I've worked. And I've worked with great people, working on hard problems in great organizations. I think it's different, and anyone who runs their own business, I think would agree, it's different when it's your own baby.
Yeah, yes, it is. It really is. Which comes down to the point of like, where I don't talk like a fucking investor, but like, you know what I mean? Like I want to know, like, okay, the reason why I'm asking this is because in my industry, right, there are some people that start businesses with the trajectory to sell the business. And then there are some businesses that start up with the trajectory to make sure they're always looking after people and they have no intention to sell. And the trajectories of both variations, when a business is going on a trajectory of growing the business for the trajectory to sell, after the deal is done, usually there's great transitions that happen at the sale point, which 3 of the businesses I've come through with, TradeGecko, DR Systems, who's another one? Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. There's a couple of the dudes who have Shipwire is another one, where they've sold it, and the businesses that built trust with them had it betrayed because the customer support, the experiences, and all that stuff gets on once the founders are all riched up and moved on. Happens quite a bit. So there's a lot of businesses. Fafilio now is one of those guys too. Like I know those guys were from the Australia Post founding group with what they were going through, aimed to make a startup really well. Got Porto with Star Trek and all the rest of it. Now they're looking to do what they're going to do, which is, if anyone's with Fafilio right now, as you could imagine, they're going through some transitions right now. It's a bit shit because you want to work with someone and you want to set up your structures so that you're able to just have trust and consistency to go the bigger miles. When those structures you put in place change, another good example is even my service provider for my internet provider, which was a WA bloke, but then he sold it to Venture IP, which became the United States server thing. The point is that when they change, there's transition changes that make it very difficult. So I'm curious to know, where is Cogsflow's trajectory? Because if you're going to get in bed with these guys, I can already see that once they get financed once, twice, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, seventh time, they're going to start to have a deeper dependency, deeper growth of relationship. Where does that journey go from your perspective?
Oh, what a rich discussion. I love that you've brought it up. I think trust is really important. Of all the things that you said, like trust and dependency, keep space. Perhaps you keep space as your business even more than mine, is core business. It's at the heart of e-commerce folks. Most folks for when they think of finance, and certainly for us, by our nature, we are repaid and we're out of the system. We're out of our clients' businesses unless they want to use us again. So we have to be good. We have to add value. We have to be worth it for our customers. Otherwise, they won't use us again. I think for you folks, once you have customers, their cost of switching, that's just painful. But as you say, life is unpredictable, and the future is unknown. The best I can do as a founder is be honest and forthright and open and say, this is where we're at and this is where we're heading. Personally, I didn't start the business with the intention of selling it within X years. If I'm still working in this business decades in the future, I'll be happy. That's great. I think we'd better be doing things well by then. Otherwise, it won't be working. But by the same token, if folks want to come along, and if we sell to someone else, certainly with co-founders and with investors, I can't say that that's not going to happen, because as a business, we mean things to our customers, we mean things to our founders and our employees, we mean things to our investors. And the best thing that I can do as a founder is to be clear and straight as to what that is and what that means to each one of those different groups. I think my thinking on that has changed over the last few years of running businesses. I think I've seen more folks sell, and many of those have been joyous sales where the founders have made lots of money and kind of sailed off into the sunset. A handful of those have been either regretful sales or forced sales, or their life circumstances have changed, and their ability to commit big hours as founders to businesses. One in particular for a chronic illness in their family was just, hey, when we started out, life was great. Now that we have little ones, now that we have people that are very sick, I can't do this anymore. Things need to change. And I think that's one of the great things about businesses. Like, it gives us freedom to start what we want to start and take a hypothesis and say, we want to solve this for people and we think we can do this at scale and for profit. But by the same token, as the world changes, as things are no longer valuable, as people can solve those problems in other ways or cheaper ways, I aim to empower founders. And if they look at the ways that we empower them and say, that's not valuable to me, I don't want that, I don't need that, that doesn't make my life better, then, they won't buy it. They won't buy from us. They won't do business with us. We have to be on our game, and we have to continue being on our game as the world changes. And that's hard.
Well, you seem to be doing all right. If you started a business that looks at a problem and it's trying to deal with a certain circumstance, recognizing that there is a need in the finance part so that they're able to get it through is valuable. Now, I don't know your perspective of this, but I'm curious to get your opinion. I've always looked at money as technically just an inflation of the heart of the founding team. All it does is it expands what they already were like when you just put more money into them. If they were beautiful people, they just become really a benevolent company. If they're a little bit cynical and nasty, they just become an assholes with lots of cash. And money seems to really do that. So I'm curious now, what happens where, it's going to change gears a little bit, when you're in a situation where you've been able to provide money to someone, but they weren't able to sell and deliver and execute, and shit gets a little nasty in the business itself. What role do you usually would you want to play, or do you play any role at all? Or you just say, look guys, you got a plan, just keep trying. Or what normally happens? Let's say it's the 10 grand with the shoes. I could only sell 2 grand worth of shoes.
Yeah. Great question. And I think we've learned a lot in the couple of years that we've been operating in this regard. Number one, I think we need to be realistic around, hey, what's our view on the business's ability to generate cash over the coming period? And we look at specifically over 90 days, the next quarter, and then 180 days, the next half. They're the kind of two timeframes for us around what's the business's ability to work like that. And that's, just where we're at as a startup. As a massive business, maybe we could take a longer view around 12 months or 36 months. I know that other providers do, but that's kind of where we've started around, hey, the ability to generate cash. The first one is we have a view on how much cash they're likely able to generate, and that will max out, or that will cap out the amount of inventory that we would buy. There's another side piece there around what inventory do they already have on hand? Is that saleable? Is that inflated? I think that's a conversation for another time. I think many folks in e-commerce land have strong opinions.
What are you talking about? This is the best thing ever. What are you talking about?
Your
spent 3 times more than I should have, but it's worth it,
Your business has a first front row view on that because it's literally sitting on your racking.
All the time, yeah.
But your example around, hey, I've got 10,000 sneakers, I've sold 2,000 sneakers, we get to the end of the period with 8,000 sneakers, what's possible? So the first one is just for us to be repaid and we can shake hands and walk away. And again, that's the clarity option that many of our customers like. They say, hey, direct debits weekly until we hit the end of our term, and then, they just repay back everything. Honestly, and certainly for our smaller customers, that can be the better option because then they get a clean slate. It's all theirs. They get to run their business the way that they want. The second one is a refinance opportunity. So, hey, of the $8,000 outstanding on your sneakers, what is your capacity over the coming season? And again, we can quote an offer on that. That's not our preferred option because all of a sudden, we're going to charge you for the finance cost on that inventory twice. Ideally, in the lead up to that scenario, we would be saying, we think you should move this stock because you are not selling through fast enough. We're not experts on sneakers. We're not experts on your market or customer profile, but we can see your data.
To be so. Yeah.
We can see your data and we can see your sell-throughs and say, hey, consider these sales strategies. And again, there are playbooks there around ramping up ad spend, discounting, bundling, all of those sorts of things that e-com folks can and should do. Even achieving sell-through, even not at full margin, in our view, is preferable than hanging on to products that are aging. And again, this goes to the mindset of an e-com retailer. I cut my teeth in Aldi supermarkets, and that's a volume business. So, the business model there is when you walk into the store, you get a complete shop on core household grocery items, whether it's ambient, freezer, frozen, fresh, whatever, you can always get what is there. But they're special buys in the middle of the store, limited. They want FOMO. They want people to pick it up and to buy it there and then because they aim to achieve sell-through so that it's out of the store. And I remember one of my stores, we were getting to the end of Christmas. So they put all the Christmas stuff on sale. They've been selling it through November and December. Boxing Day, everything goes on sale. And the aim is to have everything cleared by mid-Jan. And one store had been overstocked, had achieved okay sales, but they were still sitting on a lot of stock. I caught one of the staff, kind of bundling it up in the back end of the warehouse, of the storeroom. I was like, folks, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we're going to bundle it up together. We're going to plastic wrap it. We're going to hang on to it. We're going to sell it next season for Christmas. To which I replied, no stock. We'll celebrate a birthday in this store. I'm not paying to house that stock in the back room of the store for another 12 months, put it back out on show and sell through. It's better for everyone. It's better for us. I would rather spend the money on a discount, so foregone sales, rather than commit that corner of the stock room for that.
David, you're talking on something that's really hard for e-commerce. And I've had this conversation once or twice. Some e-commerce businesses just really, really struggle with realizing they couldn't sell it and put a discount on it just to move it. They'll just hold fast until the business dies. It's sad, and I see it happen sometimes. So sometimes when you know something isn't selling and then just sell it at a loss so you can just move it on, it's really, really hard thing to swallow and grow. And it's a maturity level in growing. You don't hit them all, you won't win them all. And the ones you do hit, amazing. The ones you don't hit, it is humble pie all day long to just throw that down and only get 20% of the actual volume of 20% of the actual price back on what was spent, just so that it's gone, or 50%, if you want to be nicer about it, because it reflects on something that's innate in a lot of the human nature of people. Is like they don't like to fail, but failure is definitely something that you have to get used to in business, because failure is learning. But to learn something like that and move something like that, I do agree with the position. It's very difficult to find maturity in execution of that kind of thing. Bloody hard to find.
I'm 100% there with you. And, the kind of two scenarios are folks under order, they sell through and they have stock outs. That hurts. That sucks, right? Like, hey, foregone sales because I didn't have any of these open to buy. I've seen some folks do pre-sales, collect deposits, then you create a customer service issue where folks are emailing you saying, hey, where's my thing, da-da-da-da-da. That, folks can do that if they want. The second one around, hey, we've ordered too much, we're not selling enough, the ads aren't working for whatever reason, we're not getting the sell-through that we wanted. It's less risky to take the hit, to sell the money, to pay the discount, and to bank the cash, because then it gives you options on what you want to do next. It lets you say, with cash in your account, less inventory, but more cash in your account is a much more favorable position for all of our small business folks to go again and pay their suppliers, attract more capital from folks like us. And as you say, that cycle and that learning cycle of getting better and better and understanding how it works, if all you do is buy inventory and it sits on a warehouse, you don't get learning cycles. There are specific problems or there's specific challenges around, brand erosion and making sure we don't go on sale too often, high-low pricing versus everyday low pricing, EDLP. You can talk about all of that, but just as a business owner, be on the front foot and be deliberate about how you're running your business. I think that's what we say to all folks. Be eyes open and be deliberate about what you're doing. Ultimately, it's their business, right? So it's their decision. But we are very much of the school of make sure that you're achieving sell-through, that you're achieving sales, that you're banking cash, and you get way more options around how you want to run in the future.
No, it's really good. Look, we'll come to an end on what we're talking about here, and we usually end with the same thing, which is about your call to action. I know we're going to go through a couple of war stories and stuff, but that actually is a really solid maturity nugget right there, that one that we just talked on. I don't think we've talked about it very much. It's always been discussed behind private doors with businesses that are usually in the 2-3 million phase that go through those things. It's very rare for me to see it in the businesses that are less than 500,000 phase, because the emotions are too high and the logic's too low in some decision choices when it comes to that. But you are right when in that whole approach. In saying that though, if some people were hearing this for the first time and you had an opportunity for them to do their action for today, what would be your call to action for them in an e-commerce world?
Gosh, I love the question. I think the call to action is, to achieve what you want to in your business, do you have everything at your fingertips? Are you empowered enough to do it? So, for folks that are running a garage or a spare bedroom business, sooner or later, you're going to need to use a service like Keepspace. Go have a chat to Jesse and the team. To make sense of that, to get the volume that you need to achieve that, you're probably going to need external funding of some sort. And if you have a rich uncle or you're prepared to sign over your house, all power to you. But if you don't, or you're not, come and see folks like us. So jump on our website and fill in a few fields, and we would love to get back to you. The team would love to get back to you. I started my business, and all of us here at Cogsflow are committed to empowering next generation entrepreneurship. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but we think that it's going to involve making business simpler, more delightful, and easier. We would love for folks to be more entrepreneurial. we would love to be supporting them with products, services, solutions that enable that. So for that call to action individually, it's achieve the purpose for which you started your business, and talk to and find folks around you that will help you get there. And we think that we can be a key player in that.
Cool. Look, David, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast. It's really good to hear your story and actually hear your side of what you're working on. I hope you enjoy Perth while you're there, and have a great day, man.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jesse. Looking forward to catching you when you're back in town.
Cool.